Hey everybody, this is Kevin for another episode of Lazy Literature. In my last episode, I highly recommended that everybody read The End of the Myth from the Frontier to the Border Wall in the Mind of America by Greg Grandin. And this week, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I am going to recommend that everybody read the excellent zombie novel Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. And at the same time, right after I read Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead and before I made this video, I also read Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone. And in this video, I would stand by my assertion that you should read Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead and honestly maybe put Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone off to the side because I didn't like it that much. And so far, it's in the dubious collection of the last two Kingsbridge novels by Ken Follett, and now Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone as the books I recommend that you don't read or you just keep an honest perspective of how good they are when you actually do read them. I recommend that you read Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead because it's a fast read at just over 300 pages and it does a really good job of focusing on abstract concepts in American life, culture, American society in the context of the zombie apocalypse. And normally, I think zombie apocalypse scenarios for TV shows, movies, books, video games, comics, all of that entertainment stuff, it could be easy to do it wrong because you could have characters that just aren't convincing. You can have zombies that aren't the type of zombies that you want them to be. And overall, a lot of people have addressed zombies and their zombie like attitudes in previous works. So I think any creator, author, director, writer, what have you, they really have to bring a new and fresh idea, ironically enough, for a story about the Walking Dead and, in this instance, the humans that are still living amongst them. Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead is really good because it gives you a great in depth look at the main character who is named in a fun way, in my opinion, Mark Spitz, after the Olympic swimmer from the 1970s. And you are given full access to his thoughts and his mind as he goes through a 3 day sweep with his other bag 'em and tag 'em cleanup crew in downtown Manhattan. But over the course of these 3 days in the timeline of the novel, he also gives you flashbacks and he explains how he got to this point. And in those flashbacks and the commentary from Mark Spitz about the differences between post zombie life and now the zombie life that he finds himself in is some interesting commentary about all of the normal kind of mundane aspects of our lives that kind of take on new meaning when you have some time from dodging the undead to reflect and think about them and figure out if you hated them for years, thinking about these aspects of society, or in fact, in the face of zombies who want to eat your face, maybe you actually miss them and how reassuring they could be. So sometimes Mark Spitz, Colson Whitehead, however you want to take a look at the narrator, they comment about work and what it was like pre-zombie to go to work and wonder if you're going to get a raise and how you're going to support yourself. And now in the zombie apocalypse, your work is killing zombies, staying alive, trying to find food and water that doesn't give you diarrhea. And for Mark Spitz, as he meets more and more survivors and communities making America inhabitable again. So clearing roads, killing zombies, bagging and tagging the zombies, and then all of the other domestic things that would go into creating a community. So interacting with other people in some type of social setting, lunch, meals, dinner, breakfast, maybe community gatherings, stuff like that. But also stuff like laundry, cooking, and all of that fun household stuff that they're really trying to introduce with all these zombies running around that want to eat their faces. And, when you're engaged in that type of community building, I think Mark Spitz, the narrator, he points out that maybe sometimes you can miss something like one of those restaurants that just seems to have all of the stuff on the walls for rewording of a popular phrase from Super Troopers. And, those restaurants, they can be pretty basic and the food might not be so great. But if a zombie is trying to eat your face, again, maybe going out for a lazy lunch at one of those restaurants could be very appealing, again, when all of the zombies are around. And one thing I really like about Zone 1, and to wrap up my recommendation for it, is that it moves really slow in the timeline, but it does a great job of addressing a lot of different topics over the course of 3 days. And it's also exciting, don't get me wrong. The plot keeps moving as Mark Spitz and his Bag 'em and Tag 'em recon team keep moving through Manhattan. Things get interesting for them, and they have to figure a few things out. And as you're figuring out what to read for your next book, you should take a look at Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. It is very good. It is a fresh and interesting perspective on what it would be like to live through a zombie apocalypse, and I highly recommend that you give it a read. I don't think a lot of people should read Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone because it's like a bad action movie that's written out as a book. It's about a journalist, John Converse, who is stationed in Vietnam, specifically Saigon, I believe, and he's trying to smuggle narcotics back to America for, that type of business with this other character, his partner, Ray Hicks. And the main plot of the book revolves around the fact that John Converse is conflicted about a lot of things in his life, his job as a journalist, his role in the counterculture of the 1960s and developing into the 1970s, and also, most importantly, his wife and daughter. His wife is named Marge, and eventually, through so many twists and turns of the pretty dramatic plot, this partner, Ray Hicks, he gets back to America and gets Marge involved in the narcotics business. And then they have all of these interesting interactions with this other cast of characters from other hippies, bikers, law enforcement officials, family members who work in pulp magazine publishing and the journalism that goes with that. And for John Converse, Ray Hicks, and John's wife Marge, they're pretty flat characters. There's not a lot of depth that goes into understanding them. And I think that's because they're never really put in what feels like authentic situations. They're always dealing with violence. Ray Hicks is a psychopath. Marge, as a female character, is always being put in these tense, sexual, violent situations. And after the first one that you read, all of the rest, they start seeming less and less believable and just kind of flat attempts at creating dramatic tension for her character in relation to all of the other guy characters. And overall, this book, it just focuses way too much on violence and narcotics, and it just doesn't seem believable. It reads like a bad action movie that I might watch on a lazy Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And most importantly, I think this is a little bit of lazy literature because the main character, John Converse, he's just not believable in anything he does. He's very wishy washy. I don't know if he's meant to be like the older, more grown up, more edgy Holden Caulfield, but that's just kind of the read that I got from his character. So, to wrap up this episode, everybody, I recommend that you read Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. Take yourself into the zombie apocalypse with Mark Spitz, and I think you might have a good enough time, at least reading about his experiences. Maybe take a look at Dog Soldiers by Robert Stone. I understand they've tried to make it into a movie a couple of times, so maybe you could take a look at the movie if that interests you, read the book. I would probably put the book off to the side, but that's just the opinion on lazy literature. In my next episode, I will be recommending and reviewing The Undying by Anne Boyer. I'm working my way through it right now, and so far, at about a third of the way through the book, it is excellent. And to be honest, I didn't expect anything less from Anne Boyer because she is an excellent poet. So before next week, take a look at Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead and also take a look at the poetry by Anne Boyer. Have a good day, everybody.